I think since the last time when President Moi started a really serious program of tree planting, he was seen to be spearheading the campaigns for tree planting himself. He was seen to be spearheading against soil erosion and so on. There hasn't been a deliberate government-driven effort. Yes, we talk about it, but there hasn't been a deliberate effort. There then was another effort made at the time by the late Wangari Maathai,
yes,
where she did begin to raise alarm about the loss of our forest cover. And between the time she began to raise the alarm and the time she received the Nobel Peace Prize, we had lost a large percentage of our forest cover. So this has to be a deliberate effort that has to go on. In fact, I've been up country, and I have never seen Wasingishu so dry. The heat is scorching. The rains are supposed to have been here. So we can see this. We are being affected by climate change because all this comes with the destruction of our forest cover.
Yes.
So unless there is real effort by the ministry and and supported by the entire government system, we are going to lose. And remember that Kenya is almost more than 60% of our GDP is reliant on agriculture. So we cannot afford to have any climate change or to lose our forest cover, which is what makes the rains consistent.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Right, I'll be crossing over to you to comment also on the happiness report. Kenya is ranked the 27th unhappiest nation in the world. Let me just ask if Honorable Makali is a happy man, and why are we ranked the 27th unhappiest nation in the world? 2002, I mentioned before, we were there on the spot as the happiest nation in the world. Because was it because of a transition? But right now, we've slipped back to 27th.
Yeah, maybe before I comment on the issue of being unhappy,
of course,
let me just weigh in on the issue of the Forest Day.
Yes.
Today being an International Forest Day, I think it's very important that we appreciate efforts being made by Kenyans. I remember Dr. Karua, who comes from my constituency, has been very keen on pushing for plant your age. That if you are 50 years, every year you plant your age.
Yes.
So I think there are quite a number of initiatives being pushed so that at the end of the day, we achieve the 10% forest cover. And it's very important that Kenyans will really take this seriously because there must be a reason why we insist on 10% cover. It's just not a statement. So I would really, even as we celebrate the day, it's important that we take this day seriously, and even throughout the year, where it is possible to plant trees, we want to encourage Kenyans to plant trees. Depending on the issue of being happy or not happy, I think the economic times, what is happening currently, it's very difficult for anybody to be happy. You know, when you look at the prices of petrol, they are going up, prices of food, stuffs, they are going up. And, you know, this is a perception issue that when you talk to Kenyans out there and ask them, how is life? Anytime we walk around, the first thing you say, jumbo to anybody, the statement which comes from them is, maisha ni ngumu bwana. So, you know, with that kind of statement coming from every Kenyan, wherever you go, including even us who are at this level, who have a salary, you can realize it's very difficult for anybody to be happy because people are generally happy when their basics have been met. And Kenyans are struggling to meet their basics. So I think the study which says we are 27th unhappy nation, I agree with that research finding. And to me, the thing is just, as we approach now the electioneering period, Kenya should be looking out for people who can then change that scenario. That you remember after 2002, they were declared the most happy, is it optimistic team. So we would want to see the same case that after our elections, then Kenyans will believe that they have elected a team which can change their lives so that we start registering good numbers when it comes to assessment on happiness. Yes.
Right, and I just want to show you that particular ranking here, happiness ranking in Africa in 2021 by country. And we have Mauritius leading on that list, followed by Nigeria. And also we have Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Cameroon, South Africa, Zambia, Morocco, Tunisia, Uganda. We have, this is in Africa. We have Kenya here. If we just look at it, this is Kenya. Kenya at 4.4 4.55. This is tying with Ethiopia, 4.55, despite the fact that we know the turmoil that is going on in Ethiopia. Are we ranked to the same plan with Ethiopia, as it were? You have Uganda there on top of it with 4.64, Namibia 4.45, Benin 4.41, Tanzania is 3.79, even after celebrating, of course, the 100 days of 1 year actually of President Samia being on top there. And also Zimbabwe is lagging there, 3.16. This is in Africa, 27th in the world. Gladys, you can see these rankings?
I can, yes.
Yeah, what do you say?
I think, we see that we have dropped on the index is because currently, first of all, we have an election coming.
Yes.
We have a country where people are extremely disappointed with our political leadership. And therefore, of course, there's a lot of people are unhappy and criticizing the government. They're complaining about the promises that were supposed to have been implemented that haven't happened. So the political mood, therefore, can affect our ranking. Hopefully that will change after the August polls. Also, there is a lot of difficulty in the economy. People were hard hit by COVID. So that sort of exacerbated the challenge that we were having. So there was COVID, and then it's also the economy was affected.
But when in economics they say what? Ceteris paribus? Yeah,
Sorry?
Ceteris paribus, considering everything constant.
Yes.
We had pandemic all over the world. Yeah, so everyone will say, oh, this was pandemic, so that's why we are unhappy. So if
I think what happened is the pandemic happened, but it changed our lives. For example, we missed out. People couldn't, for a long time, people couldn't go to church. That is an important spiritual and social gathering that 80% of Kenyans are involved in.
I agree.
So they lose out on that. If people were going out on holiday, they were going to restaurants, they were meeting, they were going for weddings, even around burial times, people were, at some point during the pandemic, people buried their loved ones in a half.
Yes.
Because, so things like that, changing your lifestyle, people don't actually realize how much the pandemic affected people's own emotional state.
It's true.
Yes, so it affected them economically, but it also affected their emotional state. Children who, going to school is an important fabric of their lives. To have children staying at home and not having their friends, so even what happens is kids wake up and they're happy, they're going to have a football game, they're going to have PE at school, they're going to meet their friends, they're going to take the walk back home from school. That is part of their lives, and now they were stuck and can't see anyone. So yes, that did affect people's emotional state.
I agree. Right, let me rope in also Senior Counsel Senator Okongo Omogeni. Good morning, good to see you, sir.
Yes, good morning, Idubal.
Fantastic. Yes, you just joined us while we were looking and also marking the International Forest Day. Just briefly, that you may comment on that. And this ranking of Kenyans being unhappy that we've been ranked the 27th in the world right now, and also looking at Africa, we're lagging behind Ethiopia, or on the same plane with Ethiopia, as it were, but Uganda is on top of us. So are we teetering on the edge of unhappiness, going down and down? Just your comments briefly. Good morning.
Yes, thank you, Idubal, and it's good to have this bright morning. I think first we need to understand what parameters those who are ranking countries look at. And I've just joined the discussion, and I presume you are talking about the happiest people in the world.
Yes.
You'll find that in Europe. I think the leading country currently is Finland. And what makes it to be number one in the world, it's because it has been able to tackle some of the challenges and problems that we have not been able to tackle as a country. Number one, you will not have people who are happy when there is a lot of joblessness and unemployment. If you look at the 2020 statistics, out of about 13 million youths who have finished secondary and college education, more than 5.4 million Kenyans in the youth bracket are unemployed. There is no way you can attain, number one status when you have that level of unemployment, which is about 13% unemployment rate. So that's too high. Number two, insecurity. You need to ask a Kenyan, are you going to be confident and walk in the Nairobi streets or in any part of the country at 10 p.m.? Most Kenyans will tell you no. I will be scared of my own safety. So we have not been able to tackle issues of insecurity. In those countries like Finland, Denmark, you can do your business, walk around at 1 a.m. and you are sure of your security. So that also affects us. The issue of universal health care. You know, these are people who have been supported by their own governments not to worry about being sick. The government has put in place very good health care facilities. So when you are sick, you are confident that your country has put in place good health care facilities. You will go to an hospital, get treated at minimum costs. You know, once you buy your insurance, you are guaranteed of quality health care in your public health facilities. So we need to understand as a people that those are some of the things that we need to tackle, ensure there is security, ensure that we create jobs for our youth, ensure that we have in place a universal health care that can give confidence to all Kenyans. That way our ranking will come up. As long as we have not tackled some of those basic needs for our people, we will still be ranked very lowly as a country.
Thank you very much. All right, thank you. Let's see what is fresh off the press this morning briefly. And we begin with the bold paper. This is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Standard this morning. Let me try and just put up that particular paper for you. It is all about the game of numbers, Ruto numbers. That is a splash today, myths versus reality. It says, back here, Rift Valley Deputy President's perceived political bedrock is cosmopolitan, with various communities showing allegiance to different national leaders. However, Azimio and Kenya Kwanza have not given the region adequate attention. This is well fleshed out for you on page 6 and 7 of the Standard this morning. Also still on the front page of the Standard, why Uhuru snubbed launch of key DCI lab. It was the president's signature project in the security sector, and he was expected to commission it, only for the plan to be dropped at the last minute with claims of infighting over procurement of equipment. This story continues on page 11 of the Standard this morning. Athletic stars run for politics is a sidebar story there that you can see, and they say they cruised to stunning victories in road and track races across the world, and after conquering them all, athletes are now seeking to delve into the murky waters of politics. You have that extensive story on page 38 and 39 of the Standard today. Also inside health and science, we're trying to focus on how to get twins. There are higher chances of getting twins now than in the 1980s. Find out how if you want or you actually joining that family way. All the details are in today's segment of the Pull-Out magazine of the Standard Health and Science. Let's look at the teaser on top here. African shows promise or promises love, drama, soft life. All that on page 3 of the Standard. Also, Magoha bans phones in exam centers. And this story continues on page 14. Is this ban really coming out a little bit too late? Because, of course, the leakages were there. There's an extensive coverage also on the People Daily this morning. But you can read also the Standard where it is well elucidated for you. Also, CBK eyes more bonds in new Emma Kiba on page 27 of the Standard this morning. Chelsea players in never say die mode. This is on page 48 of the Standard this morning. This is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy for yourself. The Daily Nation is up next, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the Daily Nation. Coming up shortly, Daily Nation for you, and it's all about the crowds. Are we having politicians hiring these crowds? At the end of the day, they're here. They will tell us if that is the case in the strategy boardrooms. Are there money that is stashed aside for the crowds? Crowds for hire. That is the Daily Nation for you. Democracy on sale. It says there's a Daily Nation and NTV investigation revealing shocking details of normalization of hirings on the campaign trail and how politicians will do anything to create false impressions of popularity, including using photo and video editing software to distort rally numbers. That is what we have on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. Decision there, 2022. And you can see this is What they're claiming is some of the deep fake video editing that is right now, when we talk about disinformation and misinformation, that is what we do have on the front page of the Daily Nation this morning. And for you continuing there, you can see how they come out in force there. I'll guard your wealth, Ruto assures Uhuru, is a sidebar story there. And I can just zoom in. ICC, we've been through many challenges together, including facing the International Criminal Court cases at The Hague. Deputy President William Ruto yesterday regretted that President Uhuru Kenyatta had wrongly judged him as someone who would not protect his interest after retirement. You have this story on page 5 of the Daily Nation this morning. How KCSE tests leaked despite Magoha's repeated assurances. This story on the back page of the Daily Nation this morning. This is how it looks. Also on top here, sibling rivalry threatens to tear apart alliances. Azimio la Umoja flag bearer Raila Odinga and Kenya Kwanza leader William Ruto faces an uphill battle to contain the sibling rivalry in their teams. The city contest is a big headache. You have that story on page 4 of the Daily Nation this morning. Right, this is how it looks. Make sure you grab a copy of the Daily Nation if it really floats your boat as well. Let's move further and see what we have on the front page of the People Daily, and that roping also a panelist on this as well. I'll just shift, the grounds a bit, the Great Migration, because technology is failing me on the other side on my BG, so I have to come here. So in case you're just wondering what happened in studio, well, that's it. Right, let me see what we have also on the front page of the People Daily, and this is what you're waking up to on the front page of the People Daily this morning, and this is what you're waking up to. Now there's alarm as DCI investigates exam cheating, and this is what is on the front page of the People Daily this morning. It says, oops, there you go. KCSE measures, move comes on day education officials spell out new rules to rein in officials involved in the rampant leakages. This story on page 6 and 7 of the People Daily this morning. Also, Gachagua backs Nyoro for UDA deputy position is another story you can follow there. And we have now leaders calling out Korea for ethnic profiling. And it says here, this is the story you can follow on page 8. Embakasi East MP Babu Wino addresses residents of Mathare yesterday during the Azimio la Umoja rally. We have, this is a polling here. Raila Odinga at 52, William Ruto at 29. Raila rules Mombasa. This is a show, is a polling by Infotrack there. And it seems Raila is way ahead of the pack at 52%, William Ruto at 29%, Kalonzo 1%, Musalia 0.1%, Jimmy Wanjigi 0.1%, Gideon 0.1%, and others 0.1%. Those who've refused to answer 0.1%. Undecided 0.1%. And this is the Infotrack. This is the latest polling on the Mombasa, of course, votes. People Daily for you. And Kenya goes to trial in DRC for terror charges. You can follow that story on page 5 of the People Daily. Lastly, let's see what we have on the front page of a Star. Then I rope in our panelist as well to just comment on some of his stories, because these are stories shaping our week, our day. And we have this on the front page of the Star this morning. Coming up shortly. This is what you're waking up to the front page of the Star. Why Uhuru is Ruto's election headache. This is a splash. Tables turn after daring president to a duel. DP is now pleading for Uhuru to be neutral. He has been pleading with his boss to stop campaigning for Azimio's Raila Odinga. You have the story on page 4 and 5 of the Star. And you can see also him on the campaign trail there, with masses joining him on the ground as well. And info truck survey, Mvita, MP Nasir leads Shabal and Omar in Mombasa governor race. You can follow that story also on page 6 of the Star this morning. This is how it looks in a nutshell. Make sure you grab a copy. And Ukraine is determined to be free. This is Ambassador of Ukraine to Kenya speaking. And over 10 million Kenyans risk going blind in the next 1 decade. This is according to state agency, which is warning this. You can read the rest of the story inside the Star this morning. A quick look at the Star, then we join a quick look at the editorial cartoons, then we join also a panelist to just also take a swipe on what the cartoonists have for us as well, briefly. We'll begin with what is in the Standard today. And this is what has been drawn by Gado inside the Standard today. All right, in 2017, this was the attack dog for the Antoinette. And this is Kuria, the bulldog. Right? Snarling and growling. And today also we have this particular pug as well, which is Kuria. And we have Arab Singh, who's now the owner of his dog. And these are some of the political operatives who are coming out now, the attack dogs, as they call them at the end of the day. I just want us to, of course, realize, and we've noted that Moses Kurian leaders are calling also for him to be before the NCIC, but also Raila Odinga is back in the country. We have his Madoa remarks, and is bound to be appearing before the National Cohesion and Integration Commission as well. Briefly, let's just hear from our panelists. And let's just begin with Honorable Makali on that particular editorial cartoon.
Wow. You know, Dibal, Moses Kuria is my friend. Mm-hmm. Actually, we have been together in Parliament for 2 terms, although he came in through a by-election. Mm-hmm. And I think for the last, since he came back from Dubai, I think he has been sending what I would call mixed signals. And I'm to some extent surprised by the way he's been conducting his politics since he came back. Because it seems to be all over. You remember when he came back immediately, he had a meeting with the Oka team. Mm-hmm. Within a very short time, he gave a condition that he can join Oka only under one condition, that they don't join as Mio. Mm-hmm. Then from there he moves to Uda when he had his homecoming rally. And he has been saying things which really are not consistent. And you wonder really what has happened to him, because over time he has been a very consistent politician. We've served with him in some committees, and from my own assessment, he's a smart brain. But the kind of signals now he's sending, you wonder whether is he really sure of what he wants. Mm. Because he talks about his party today, tomorrow he's talking about a coalition. Then he says things which you don't, like now what he said this week, the issue of what he said about Raila Odinga and the historical kind of, is it whole thing or what? Mm-hmm. You wonder whether at this level we need to start talking about such things. But all said and done, he has his own democratic right. I remember at one point he was being demonstrated as an octopus. You know, octopus has many tails.
And many tentacles.
Yeah. They were saying like he wants to be all over the place. That he wants to have some leg in Uda, he wants to have another leg in Azimio, and he wants also to have his own leg because he's so strong about his own party. And you wonder what kind of an animal is this. And normally what happens when you stretch yourself all over the place, then you find you really, at the end of the day, will just be torn into pieces. And I'm imagining he needs to reorganize his thoughts, be a principled politician, take a position and remain in that position, be consistent the way you conduct your politics.
Thank you.
So that at the end of the day, you will be respected. Because the more he keeps on pushing some of these things on the media, the more he keeps on making some pronouncements, the more people are losing faith in him. And I think really, for me, I'm in that category of people who are now wondering, what's wrong with my friend?
Gladys, we hear, of course, of a mongrel here or a multi-hydra-headed sort of a creature that is becoming to be Moses Kuria at the end of the day, an octopus with many tentacles. I don't know, from your assessment as well, looking at what we're hearing from other leaders that they're calling upon him also to, make good of what he said on the ground to appear before the National Cohesion and Integration Commission.
I think people are not reading Moses Kuria right. I think Moses Kuria's reaction should be looked at in the context of his own local politics.
Yes.
His responses even to Uhuru Kenyatta is not to Uhuru Kenyatta as president, but to Uhuru Kenyatta, who is the chief campaigner of ODM in Mount Kenya region and including in his backyard. So that is the context in which he was making his reactions. Moses Kuria is well aware that his decisions on which parties to be affiliated with has got to do with looking at history. Uhuru Kenyatta made a mistake in 1997 when he lost the Gatundu seat, parliamentary seat. He made the same mistake in 2002 when he lost the presidential election, and that is because he was in the wrong party. And Moses Kuria is well aware that being in the wrong party can be political suicide, and therefore he's got to weigh and listen in onto which side his electorate are facing. And so Uhuru turned his back in Mount Kenya in 1997 and in 2002 by going to the wrong party, a party that his electorate did not support, and then it cost him, and that's why he lost. So Moses Kuria had to balance and weigh out and to find out which direction his people are going. So it's not about being indecisive, it's reading the mood. That's the reality of politics.
Right, and I think also we can actually enjoin or dovetail the appearance of Right Honorable Raila Odinga before the National Cohesion and Integration Commission as well. This week he's bound to be appearing before the commission. But the question has been, and I think we'll run a story by Rita Tinena much later to just give us the context of that, is these stories that we hear about Madoadoa. We know the Senator Linturi as well, a slap on the wrist at the end of the day. There is no concrete evidence. And we had also, lawyers have been talking and saying those videos cannot be, they are not admissible in court as evidence that is of any veracity, efficaciousness at the end of the day, because it is just not within the context. Is it a high time that maybe we should also review this particular law, because this seems to be a lacuna at the end of the day?
I think NCIC, unfortunately, is playing politics and not undertaking its work as an independent commission. They know clearly what is in the interpretation of hate speech. And hate speech is clearly when you target a race, a community, and try and incite people against that community. NCIC is on record as having one time arrested Oscar Sudi when he made some disparaging remarks on the first family, Uhuru Kenyatta's family. Uhuru Kenyatta's family is not a tribe. It is not a race, neither is it an ethnic group. So at worst, that is defamation. It can never be hate speech. I've watched NCIC in the case of Linturi. Linturi spoke. By that evening, he had received summons on a Saturday from NCIC. I have never known NCIC to work on a Saturday. Obviously, it's been politicized. And what happened? They dramatically picked Linturi. I was in Eldoret when he made those remarks. Yes, it is not good to use that word because it has a bad historical context to us, but NCIC, from listening to the entire clip, would have known it was not hate speech in the true definition within the law. So yes, they are playing politics. And I want you to look at the difference within which they dealt with Raila Odinga. With Linturi, they picked him up the following day, dramatically from Eldoret, drove him to Nakuru, then drove him to Nairobi, locked him up. I think he spent the night in the cells, and had to pay, you know, and had to pay for his bail and so on. In the case of Raila Odinga, he received summons. He was given the luxury of appearing when he feels like. He was allowed to continue with his foreign tour, come back into the country, and then luxuriously appear. That is double standards. In fact, they are window dressing by summoning Raila Odinga. They actually were not going to do it because many people in the social media complained and said, Lituri used the same words, he was arrested. Raila Odinga uses the same words, he sent summons. So NCIC has failed on its job. Yes, and in fact, one should set a tribunal to investigate NCIC. NCIC is become a political weapon that is being used to silence those who are perceived not to be towing the line of the system.
All right, Honorable Okongo Mogini, do you hold with that view? And even as Gladys is giving us the definition of the hate speech, I think that also still remains to be a very contentious definition at the end of the day, because we don't really have an ironclad definition on what hate speech is. Well, I pick your brains as well. I remain also none the wiser on that.
Yes, you know what Gladys has said, those are own personal views. I don't want to agree with her that Raila Odinga is getting preferential treatment. But what I would comment on this matter, Debal, is that there was a very huge debate bordering on controversy when we were enacting the 2010 Constitution, because I was then the president of the Law Society of Kenya. And I remember many people advanced an argument that it's very difficult to define what is hate speech. And then other people are saying what was being enacted as a new Kenyan Constitution 2010 was fairly progressive, with a lot of guarantees on freedom of individuals, including freedom of expression. So many felt that by throwing that word hate speech into the Constitution, this country was trying to limit the right of Kenyans to freely express themselves, as happens in other advanced democracies, like what happens in the United States of America. So the historical background on inserting that word hate speech in the Constitution was in itself controversial. That's why as a country we are largely depending on the judiciary to come up with an adequate definition on what is hate speech. So I think each case must be looked at on its own merit, and it must be looked on the context within which it's made. But National Cohesion and Integration Commission should not be oversensitive. They need to be, careful and fairly reasonable in arriving at an assessment whether a statement that has been made by a politician meets the standards of being categorized as an incitement or speech that is meant to show hatred against a particular ethnic group. Otherwise, we'll make it a circus where every time a politician makes a statement, it will be reduced into hate speech, and that may really impede on the freedom of expression that Kenyans are guaranteed to enjoy under the Kenyan Constitution of 2010. Secondly, Debal, you spoke about issues of videos, how you use evidence that is captured on videos in our courts of law. Debal, you have just told us about issues of crowd for hire, and how videos are manipulated so that it can be demonstrated to the viewers that such and such a politician had the largest crowd. If you read court decisions, courts have always been very, very cautious in admitting video evidence, and there are standards that must be met before a court of law admits a video that can be used as evidence on criminal charges against a Kenyan. One is that the person who has captured that video himself and the electronic gadget that has been used must be taken through a process where there will be a computer generation of that document in its raw form, and then a certificate must be issued by that person saying that he did not do any form of editing, that there was no interference on the gadget that you used, either a phone or any other gadget may be used by people of the media. Then that can be used in a court of law. And what I've seen in many times, Dibal, is that even journalists have been very reluctant to be summoned to courts to produce their own videos. So let's not say that it's the courts that are being an impediment on admission of videos. It's a safeguard that has been put in place so that people don't manipulate videos and then they release them with a view of nailing some people in court on criminal charges unfairly. That balance is very important so that there is fairness in a trial, so that manipulated videos are not used to nail people down. Finally, I think we need to make a strong appeal to our courts to come up with jurisprudence that lays the standards on what amounts to hate speech, so that this back and forth we see from NIC, like the unfortunate case of politicians who are arrested, they are locked up in cells over the week, for the whole weekend, and then finally criminal charges are not preferred. I think that's not fair. We need to have very clear jurisprudence from our courts so that once you are arrested and taken to court, there is a high chances that there will be a conviction on that criminal trial.
Right. Yeah. But if my memory may serve me well, I remember also the NCIC had indicated that they will be buying gadgets so that they will be themselves mounting those candid cameras, and this will actually cure the legal hurdle that we've been having.
No, but they've
not made good of that particular promise. So, and I wondered how practical is that for them to buy cameras and be following all these politicians, in all the campaign grounds that they will be at the end of the day. So, have they failed in the first instance?
I think, Dibal, if you just allow me to say something on that, I think that is the most pedestrian solution that NCIC can bring it up. NCIC is very clear and knows what the law is. They know how they can deal with hate speech. So telling themselves that they want to now become cameramen, that is very pedestrian. They should focus on the larger issue of the policy. What do you do to deter politicians? Set up guidelines, publicize those guidelines, keep on coming up with new words that people are known not to be able to not to say. For example, the drive in places like the US, when they stopped using the word nigger, you know, it was a whole civic education to say this is no longer politically correct to use. Countries like South Africa, there were certain terminologies that were being used during the apartheid regime. It just took civic education that these are words that are not acceptable anymore in our society. You can no longer use them. And just to tell you that NCIC has been on the international radar for being used as a weapon to fight perceived political enemies of the state. I think there was a concern raised that close to the general elections, there is the re-emergence of the use of Section 13 of the NCIC Act, and in fact, the resolution was that the resolution, in fact, was indicated that NCIC should refuse to be used as a political weapon, but instead should ensure that they stick to their true mandate, and therefore, in fact, it said, however, the Kenyan government should refrain from criminalizing hate speech. Yeah, that is deemed to be offensive, and drop the charges against the various MPs. Instead, the government should pursue avenues hinged on dialogue and public debate on what hate speech is. So yes, NCIC has even been marked out internationally.
Thank you very much. Let me just drop in Honorable Makali. We'll wind up on that. We'll take a short break and also look at these numbers that are being displayed on the standard as well. If Ruto or is truly leading in Mount Kenya, as it were, or there's no one actually who has locked Mount Kenya, as it were. Honorable Makali, and I remember if also you can talk, can speak to the list of shame that NCIC now has come up with so far. Is it making any discernible difference?
I think just about 3 quick points which we need to note, and my colleagues, I'm happy my colleagues have really focused more on the legal issues. But there are 3 general things, which I think we need also to mention to the viewers. The first one is that we all know NCIC as a commission, they have their own challenges. And even as we demand a lot from them in terms of what the law says, I think even us as leaders, we also need to be responsible as leaders in terms of what do we say. Is it something which can incite our people?
Aside from what, I think what Gladys is saying is it's within the honors of NCIC.
That's true, but at the same time,
strongly as we're heading towards general election. What do they do before?
But at the same time, I think also even the politicians, Kenyan politicians, also need to be to some extent responsible. I think there are also some statements you hear people say when they are on platforms there on the bar, and you really see some sense of responsibility. The other time we were discussing the same topic, and I said, even some of these things like madowadoa, when you say madowadoa, I said even as you analyze madowadoa term, you need to look at where was that said. For example, the Honorable Raila mentioned the word madowadoa in Wajir. Senator Riduri, when did he say madowadoa? In Rift Valley, in Eldoret.
Yes.
So even when you look at the place where the two words were actually uttered, you can see in terms of interpretation, you can still have challenges. Because the thing is, about the truth of the matter is, when you're in Wajir and you talk about madowadoa, a Kenyan is not likely to see madowadoa in Wajir as talking about tribes. Because madowadoa is purely
well, I totally disagree with you. Because if we have madowadoa in the public domain and discourse, people can relate madowadoa to what Linturi was saying.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It depends on why you say it.
No, yeah, I'm thinking, a person in the standing of Right Honorable Raila Odinga should be all the wiser to use such a madowadoa words, because it's been in public domain and not in a very colorful, palatable terms at the end of the day.
But what we are saying is, I've said many times, this is not the time to use parables. That anything you want to say as a politician, just be specific.
Yes, it will be interpreted
so that we don't get different interpretation. But all said and done, we are just saying that even at the same time, even as you analyze statements, like now we are seated here. If I say something today here, you can't just look at my statement without looking at where did that person pronounce that statement, because it has implications and the different interpretation. But I think we need to agree as leaders that even us as leaders, before we talk about NCIC, we also need to be responsible that when I get that mic, what I say is something I've thought through and I've looked at the implication in case when it goes out to Kenyans. But coming to the issue of the numbers, as you are saying, I don't know whether you still want to go.
We'll come back to the numbers on the other side of a break. We need to take a short break right now. 7 o'clock on the nose almost. You're watching Standpoint here on Morning Prime. When you circle back, party hopping right now is on the high octane. Given the 26th deadline, that will be the red line as indicated by the political parties registrar. So now people are shifting gears as well. We're talking about numbers as well. Standard has done a very extensive, story on page 4 and 5 of the Standard. Who owns Mount Kenya as far as numbers is concerned? Is it Ruto? Has he locked it down? We'll find all the details as well on the other side of the break. Don't go away. And what is happening within Azimio as far as the deal is concerned? Kalonzo now toeing and froing on issues. He's not really indicating his true north as far as the direction is concerned. We'll find out all the details on the other side of the break. Don't go away.
KTN News.